It's just different for us because we had so many altogether.
The scandal didn't begin with a headline. It didn't even begin with a blog entry or a gossip column. It began quietly, on a fan message board in the middle of the night, when one of the many anonymous users released 3 words that would go on to rock the sister wives universe. The calls are real. Kody's been making deals. He didn't want anyone to know. Initially, people dismissed it as another crazy rumor. After all, folks had been guessing about Kody Brown and his behind the scenes machinations for years. There were always rumors of favoritism towards Robyn. Secret contracts, money being exchanged in ways nobody could ever quite verify, but secret calls. That was too vague to be taken seriously, until the proof came out. The initial leaked clip wasn't always clear. Grainy sound, shaky transcript. But the voice was unmistakably Kody. That low, authoritative voice fans had grown accustomed to hearing on TLC for over a decade. He wasn't discussing a family outing or domestic bills. He was discussing leverage. He was discussing ensuring the network's aware where the power actually is. Then, the line that started an internet firestorm. They can't know about the side deal. Not yet. In an instant, the buzz shifted from rumor to fixation. What was this side deal? Whose hands was Kody talking to? And why was he so desperate to hide it? To comprehend the magnitude of these leaks, you must rewind. Sister Wives had for years been promoted as a series about faith, love, and the trials of a plural family living in a contemporary world. But as the years went on, the audience came to realize behind the heavily edited facade, Christine's breaking point, Janelle's independence, Meri's loneliness, these were not merely dramatic arcs. They were fractures in a foundation that Kody appeared hell-bent on repairing on film as everything fell apart off of it. When Christine departed, fans already suspected there was something more at play. Her departure was not simply about feeling unloved. It was about control. Christine had made veiled hints that there were financial considerations at play when it came to remaining or departing, but she never stated them outright. Janelle also described the battle for ownership and equity of Coyote Pass. Money, property, contracts, always simmering beneath the surface, but never fully disclosed. And now, with the clandestine calls being leaked, it was like someone had finally drawn the curtain back. The man who spoke of unity and preached loyalty was shown to be making deals behind the scenes. The recordings that were leaked gave a creepy picture. In one, Kody is heard declaring, "TLC only cares about ratings. As long as I give them drama, they'll play ball. But if the wives discover the details, they'll rebel." In another, he spoke of keeping Robyn secure, sending fans into a frenzy at once. Did that imply financial security, legal safeguards, a promise she'd never endure the volatility Christine and Janelle experienced? The more the fans listened, the more they understood that these weren't innocent chats. These were tactics. Tactics to maintain power within Kody's control, maintain the narrative tipped in his favor, and safeguard his position regardless of how many wives departed. The most incendiary element wasn't what Kody was saying. It was with whom he was speaking. There was one call that appeared to be with a TLC rep, but whose voice is not clear. Another had the lawyer Faye, a man who was giving Kody guidance on how to protect assets. And then there was the third speaker, a woman, whose identity is unclear. Some people wonder if it was Robyn. Others guess it was somebody completely beyond the family. Maybe a fixer who was hired to handle the damage control. Whomever she was, her appearance on the phone call caused rumors to swirl. Social media went wild. TikTok influencers parsed every word. Reddit forums stretched into dozens of comments, full of armchair detectives parsing the silence in Kody's words. The sound of clinking glasses in the distance. The distant hum of what seemed to be a car engine running. Fans weren't simply watching Sister Wives now. They were investigating it, detail by detail, like a true crime show. And as the internet seethed with questions, the family itself remained strangely quiet. Christine just kept taking happy photos of her new life, brushing it off. Janelle posted inspirational messages and veiled clues to freedom. Meri posted cryptic messages about betrayal and resilience. Robyn alone was nearly invisible, her social media presence dwindling to practically zero. The silence, naturally, just added fuel to the flames. If the rumors weren't valid, then why wouldn't Kody simply shoot them down? Why wouldn't TLC issue a statement stating them to be untrue? Instead, all anyone heard was nothing, and in reality television, there is rarely a silence that is by mistake. Silence is a tactic. The fans started speculating that maybe TLC itself had been blindsided. And if that were the case, then it meant even the network wasn't completely in charge. Some speculated it was from the inside of TLC. Somebody who had access to the recordings, upset with the disparity of power, deciding to come forward. Others speculated it was one of the wives, finally concluding the world was ready for the truth, whichever the origin. There was one thing certain: the calls were out, and they could not be put back. And the more the world listened, the more one question echoed louder. What exactly was the deal Kody didn't want exposed? Some suggested it was financial, Kody siphoning off a larger cut of the TLC money than anyone knew. Others thought it was about contracts, a secret clause giving him power over how his wives were portrayed on the show. The boldest theories suggested something even bigger: that Kody was negotiating a spin-off deal for himself and Robyn, separate from the rest of the family, planning a future without the women who had walked away. Whatever the truth may be, the calls were damning. Not because they outlined every detail, but because they attested to what fans had long suspected: that Kody's fixation on control wasn't emotional or spiritual. It was financial, contractual, and, well, concealed from the very people who trusted him most. And this, naturally, was just the beginning leak. Additional recordings were threatened. Additional transcripts were intimated. And as fans braced for what else could emerge, one sobering realization swept across the sister wives universe: Kody Brown wasn't losing his family. He was losing the story, and once the truth is released, no call, no deal, no contract can ever take it away. The fallout from the initial leak was unprecedented for sister wives. Viewers weren't just talking about it. Now they were organizing. Reality television drama channels on YouTube dissected each audio line. Podcasts dedicated an entire episode to the controversy. Even regular sources that hardly ever wrote about the Browns were sniffing around. This was no longer family drama. This was a story for the media. But within the Brown household, there was silence. There wasn't a single official word from TLC, and not one word from Kody. His wives, both old and new, went about their daily lives on social media, sharing recipes, family photos, and motivational quotes. But behind the smiling faces and carefully crafted captions, fans caught little glimmers of movement, moments that seemed like tiny nods to the drama raging around them. Christine, for instance, had put up a quote saying, "Truth always coming out." To the casual fans, it seemed like a generic motivational quote, but to fans of the leaks, it seemed like a knife pulled straight out of the heart of Kody. Janelle wrote of freedom being worth the cost. A phrase the fans immediately connected with leaving not only a marriage, but an entire system of control behind. Meri, as ever, was mysterious, mentioning one of her midnight thoughts on being muzzled too long. And Robyn, she remained silent. Absolutely, spookily silent. The rumors intensified. If the calls weren't real, why not debunk them? Why not kill the story before it became too large? Unless, of course, they really were real. Behind the scenes, whispers started circulating that the calls were just the tip of the iceberg. A source claimed that there were at least 6 recordings, not 3, and that the leaked clips were the soft launch. The most damaging material hadn't even surfaced yet. This rumor alone sent the fandom into overdrive. If what we'd heard so far was only the beginning, what on earth could the rest of the calls contain? The most popular theory was money. Fans had long assumed Brown family earnings were not divided equally, even though Kody sometimes suggested otherwise. Christine had once hinted that her own finances were a lot tighter than people believed. Janelle had publicly fretted about equity and investment in the property. Even Meri, with her bed and breakfast venture, was often working harder than Kody or Robyn. And now these secretive calls suggested why. In one transcript, Kody could be heard saying, "The network can't pay them directly. If they start seeing the numbers, I'll lose control. Everything has to go through me." It was the smoking gun fans had suspected for years. If true, it meant Kody wasn't just the patriarch of the family. He was the gatekeeper of their finances. He decided who got what, and that explained so much about the power imbalance viewers had seen play out season after season. Christine's decision to leave suddenly looked even braver. Janelle's reluctance to invest in Coyote Pass made more sense. Meri's loneliness, her constant feeling of being out, seemed connected not just to emotional distance but also financial marginalization. Then, of course, there was Robyn. The recordings continuously referred to keeping Robyn safe. One leaked clip included Kody explaining, "As long as Robyn's taken care of, the rest will be fine." Fans bricked when they heard it. Was Robyn the sole one who would be ensured stability? Was that why she stayed so cool in the craziness, and the other wives went into cash flow chaos? If that were the case, then Robyn's silence was not avoidance. It was protection. Her whole life, her house, her children's future. Everything could have been protected by Kody's secret bargain. No wonder she didn't say a word. But even more shocking came a week later in a longer clip. This time, it wasn't just about money that Kody was speaking about. He was speaking about the future of the show itself. His words chilled the fandom. "If the wives leave, fine, let them go. I can rebuild with Robyn. The network doesn't care who is on the couch, as long as there is drama, but they can't know about the side deal if they figure it out. It all falls apart." In a single sentence, Kody asserted what everybody had dreaded. The wives were interchangeable. Their experiences, their hardships, their sacrifices, unimportant to his own ambition. And worse, it suggested contingency, that Kody thought he could do the show on his own. For Christine, Janelle, and Meri, who had devoted more than a decade of their lives to sister wives, the betrayal was overwhelming. For viewers, it was maddening. Years had been invested in following these women, relating to their struggles, cheering for their autonomy. And now it was apparently obvious that, to Kody, they were merely sidekicks in his kingdom. As these discoveries gained traction, a new story began to form online. The show wasn't simply televising a family breaking apart. It was televising a man grasping at power in any way possible, even if it meant making backroom deals, stashing money, and remaking the rules so that he benefited and Robyn did as well. The explosion in reaction was instantaneous. Followers of TLC started overrunning the social media channels with calls for explanations. Hashtags number #whereisthemony and number #exposeitthedeal trended. Memes ridiculing Kody went viral, caricaturing him as a puppeteer manipulating strings behind the scenes. Christine and Janelle, on the other hand, were celebrated as heroines. Women brave enough to leave, even before they were aware of how far-reaching Kody's deceptions may have been. And then there were the rumors of legal repercussions. Some fans opined that if Kody had actually withheld financial agreements from his wives, it might border on fraud or contractual breach. Attorneys started opining on television and radio shows, speculating what would happen if the wives pursued legal recourse. Could they sue TLC? Could they sue Kody himself? Could these tapes be used as evidence in court? For the first time, it seemed like the future of Sister Wives itself was at stake. Not only ratings-wise but legally, morally, and financially. And in the midst of it all, one question went unanswered. Who betrayed the calls? Some thought it was Christine. She had the most to gain, and her brazenness in making a break seemed to indicate that she wasn't afraid to stir things up. Some even suspected Janelle, fed up with years of financial covertness. A few thought even Meri, who had suffered so much silence, that she could at last be ready to reveal all. And then came the craziest theory of all, that the leak was from within TLC. An exasperated producer, tired of Kody's dominance, might have wanted to level the playing field. What better way to ensure drama, after all, than by freeing the truth in drips? Whatever the truth may be, one thing was certain: the leaks had altered everything. Kody's public image, once so carefully constructed as patriarch of an unusual but lovable family, was in shambles. The wives, once depicted as needy, now appeared to be survivors. And the viewers, once passive observers, were now detectives, calling for accountability in a way reality television had never previously experienced. But if the initial leaks were explosive in fans' minds, they were just unaware of what was yet to come. Because the third installment of Calls, teased but unreleased as of yet, would reveal a side of Kody's empire that no one was privy to. And when those calls landed on the internet, there was no turning back. By the third leak, the internet wasn't just curious anymore. It was starving. All the fan pages, Reddit posts, and Facebook groups dedicated to sister wives were ablaze, analyzing every second of sound. But what no one was ready for was how darker and more planned out this next set of recordings would be. The first two leaks had revealed Kody's greed and favoritism towards Robyn, but the third leak revealed a layer that was even more troubling: manipulation. Not only of the wives, but of the network, of producers, and even of the public. The call started innocently enough: Kody's voice, familiar and measured, talking about contracts with someone thought to be a TLC executive. He was speaking of filming schedules, family storylines, and the dilemma of keeping people engaged now that Christine had departed. It sounded like business as usual, but then, as the call continued, the tone of Kody's words changed. "Viewers don't require the truth," he asserted. "They simply require a version of it that maintains their attention. If the wives wish to hang out their dirty washing, well and good, but I control what gets shot, and I control what gets cut." The words strike like a clap of thunder. Kody was not only a reality show dad. He was self-anointed producer, director, and editor-in-chief of the lives of the family. And worse, it implied that he had more control over TLC than anyone had known. For years, viewers had suspected that the show was edited to support some stories more than others. Robyn tended to seem level-headed and unflappable, whereas Christine, Janelle, and Meri sometimes seemed flighty, emotional, or resentful. Was that real, or was it the edit? And now with these released calls, it seemed like Kody was validating everyone's worst fears. He was editing his own persona, while throwing his wives under the bus. But the bombshell didn't end there. Later during the call, Kody said something disturbing. "If they get too loud, if Christine or Janelle try to go public with money complaints, we bury it with a Robyn storyline. The audience likes her tears. That is the distraction." It was a jaw-dropping revelation for all the wives who had picked up on the trend that Robyn's emotional moments tended to trump moments when the other wives appeared ready to speak their truth. This was the smoking gun. Kody wasn't only defending Robyn, he was supposedly weaponizing her emotional journeys to quash opposition from the other women. The response online was immediate and merciless. Sympathetic supporters filled Twitter and TikTok with side clips, Christine attempting to make sense of her financial issues in one scene, interrupted by Robyn's tearful meltdown in the next. Janelle inquiring about equality, immediately overpowered by Robyn's anxiety over family harmony. Even Meri, during her most isolated times, unexpectedly usurped by Robyn's drama. The editing trend was undeniable, and now Kody's own words appeared to validate that it wasn't an accident. Suddenly, the show wasn't reality television anymore. It was something sinister. A story expertly crafted to preserve Kody's control and keep Robyn in the middle. And then came the most shocking part of the leak. As the call concluded, Kody hushed his tone and spoke. "Look, as long as Robyn and I are solid, the brand is okay. If the rest of them leave, we recast new wives, new drama. TLC doesn't care about Christine or Janelle. They care about Kody Brown. That is the name, that is the franchise." The words caused shockwaves throughout the fanbase. Was Kody essentially admitting that the wives were expendable? That sister wives could just switch them in like soap opera characters? Fans were appalled. But they were also afraid. Did that mean Sister Wives was no longer filming a family, but rather making one up? Christine and Janelle's sudden decisions to leave appeared not only personal triumphs, but also rebukes against a system that treated them like commodities. They were no longer fighting for independence in terms of marriage. It was fighting to be more than pawns in Kody's meticulously constructed empire. And the repercussions were swift. Christine uploaded an Instagram video of herself smiling with her children. Her message simply, "Free feels good." Janelle posted a photo of herself working out at the gym, stating, "Strength isn't just physical, it is knowing your worth." Neither of them made a direct comment about the leaks, but their fans knew what they were hinting at. Meri uploaded yet another ambiguous message. "Some truths you don't speak. You just live." And Robyn, her usual silence. But silence here was more deafening than words. Speculation started among the fans that Robyn herself may have been privy to the deal all along. After all, if she was the one who was being guaranteed security, didn't she owe it to everyone to speak out? Or was her silence evidence that she had prioritized stability for herself over solidarity with the other wives? This hypothesis picked up momentum when another clip of audio emerged days later. On it, Kody stated, "Robyn gets it. She knows what we're doing. She is the only one I can trust not to make a blow-up of it." That sentence alone shook everything up. Robyn wasn't merely profiting from Kody's arrangement. She was, at least by his own lips, in on it. The fanbase was divided into two groups. While some defended Robyn as doing only what was necessary to defend her marriage and her children, others accused her of being Kody's co-conspirator in manipulation, securing her safety while Christine, Janelle, and Meri suffered. Whichever side you stood on, one thing was certain. The leaks had shattered the neat fiction of togetherness. The Brown family's cracks weren't only visible anymore. They were jagged, gaping wounds open for the whole world to witness. And yet, even as fury mounted, something even greater was fermenting behind the scenes. For while spectators argued ethics, TLC producers were dealing with a nightmare of their own. These leaks weren't merely hurtful to Kody's reputation. They imperiled the entire future of the franchise. And if Kody actually did have a side deal, if he actually was dictating the show and sabotaging the wives, then what about TLC? Could they be held responsible as well? Were they in on it? Did they know? Or had Kody somehow managed to fool the network that put him on the map? Industry observers started chiming in, suggesting that if the calls were real, TLC might find itself facing lawsuits, not only from the wives, but from viewers who felt cheated. The threat of litigation hung over the network. And in Hollywood, where legal vultures begin to circle, it is only a matter of time before the contracts are torn apart word for word. And so the leaks were no longer simply entertainment news. They were a full-fledged scandal with financial, legal, and moral implications. The fans weren't merely inquiring, "What is next for Christine?" anymore. They were wondering, will Sister Wives even make it through season 20? But dramatic as that was, there was still one more question eating away at everyone. Who was responsible for the leaks? Who possessed the recordings, and what was their motive? Theories grew wilder by the day. Some insisted it was Christine, vindicated and ready to burn the empire down. Others said Janelle, tired of financial secrecy, had decided to strike back. A smaller group even whispered Meri's name, believing that years of silence had finally reached a breaking point. But a darker theory began to emerge too, that the leaker wasn't one of the wives at all. What if it was an insider at TLC? What if a renegade producer fed up with being manipulated by Kody had taken matters into their own hands and evened the playing field? Or worse, what if the network was orchestrating this, drip-feeding the rumors as a publicity stunt for season 20? The suggestion seemed outrageous, but in reality, television, anything was possible. And with the last batch of recordings being said to be the most explosive. Yet, fans had one thing on their minds for sure: the tale wasn't finished. For if the first 3 that leaked revealed greed and manipulation, the subsequent ones were claimed to unveil something much more sinister, something that would silence Kody for good. The 4th leak was the one that shattered the internet. If the previous recordings had set the tone for Kody's greed, favoritism, and manipulation, this one took away the last thin veil of respectability he had. It wasn't family drama anymore. It was contracts, power struggles, and a betrayal so deep it rocked even the most die-hard viewers. The tape started off in a different tone than the rest. Kody's tone was harsher, more aggressive, and the person on the other side of the phone was definitely not a TLC executive. The audio engineers later said it sounded like an attorney, someone counseling him on the dangers of his so-called arrangements. And in that strained, chopped-up conversation, Kody uttered words that would come back to haunt him forever. "I don't care what the contract is. TLC will fold. They need me more than I need them. Christine thinks she can quit. Janelle thinks she can confront me. Let them. As long as Robyn's with me, the empire remains. The show dies without me, and they know it." It was arrogance in sound. A man so confident in his untouchable position that he proudly disregarded the terms of his own agreement. But it got worse. "I've already taken care of the money, locked it away," Kody went on. "Accounts they can never track down. Christine can yell, Janelle can sue, but they'll be bankrupt by the time it gets to court. Robyn and I'll be sitting pretty." The words came like a bombshell. The viewers were stunned. Had Kody just confessed, on recording, to keeping financial resources from the other wives? Janelle had complained of missing funds for years. Christine had hinted at injustice. Meri had complained of being pushed aside. But here was Kody himself now, matter of factly confessing to something that sounded perilously like fraud. The fandom went berserk. The number hidden money hashtag trended in hours. TikTok influencers chopped the leaked audio onto videos of Christine packing boxes, Janelle at the gym, and Robyn sobbing over family unity. Fans didn't just speculate anymore. It was Kody Brown speaking for himself, verifying worst case fears fans had maintained for 10 years, and then the worst of the call. Kody drops his voice and says, "If this ever comes out, I'll blame the wives. Christine's already the bad guy. Janelle's resentful and Meri. Nobody listens to her anyway. We spin it, we cover it up, and TLC supports me because they don't have another Kody Brown." Those sentences broke the entire Sister Wives fandom in two. For years, TLC had marketed its audience on shared struggle, complicated love, and tough but real plural marriage. Now it appeared that every tear, every argument, every real moment was potentially staged. Not to reveal the truth, but to keep Kody's reputation intact while blaming the women who were on the outside of it. Christine did not remain quiet this time. Hours after the leak appeared on the internet, she went live on Instagram. With measured, even wrath in her voice, she declared, "I don't have to explain myself. The truth comes out, and I think you've all heard enough to know what we've been living through." Her followers filled the chat with heart emoticons, words of encouragement, and demands for justice. Janelle followed a day later, In her post, she was blunt. "I've worked my whole life for my kids. I've earned my independence, and no amount of hidden accounts will take that from me." Her words sent chills. She didn't confirm the leak, but she didn't deny it either. Even Meri, who had been quiet in the background for so long, couldn't help but make a biting comment. One sentence on her Instagram story simply stated, "Gaslighting doesn't work when everyone can hear the tape." To fans who had long pleaded with her to stand up for herself, it was a light of hope that perhaps, just perhaps, Meri was finally finished playing Kody's silent scapegoat. But Robyn's silence grew more deafening by the day. With every leak, the pressure on her increased. Was she really innocent, trapped in Kody's trap, or was she willfully complicit? When Kody's own mouth incriminated her in his game plans, Robyn knows the plan. Fans cried out for answers, and yet none were forthcoming. Behind closed doors, TLC executives were in a state of panic. The leaks had become a firestorm that endangered not only ratings, but the network's legal standing. If Kody had been skimming money or falsifying contracts, and if TLC had let him get away with it, or horrors covered it up, they could be sued by the wives, subject to regulatory scrutiny, and see their reality television crown jewel implode irreparably. Industry blogs started breaking rumors of emergency meetings. There were rumors that the executives were brainstorming ditching Kody altogether, rebranding the show around Christine and Janelle, the break-out fan favorite wives who'd developed massive followings of their own since their departure from him. Some went so far as to propose a full spin-off that would remove Kody's existence from the landscape altogether, labeling him the toxic pasts the wives had fled. And yet, with all the speculation building, another question began to arise. Where were these leaks taking place? Who possessed the recordings, and why were they being dripped out, piece by piece, like some well-timed countdown? The theories multiplied. Some insisted it had to be Christine. Who else had the motive and the fire to take him down so publicly? Others argued Janelle, with her history of financial disputes, had finally pulled back the curtain. A few whispered Meri's name again, pointing to her cryptic posts as proof of her involvement. But then another theory gained traction. What if it wasn't the wives at all? What if the leaks were coming from someone inside TLC, an employee or producer who had grown sick of Kody's manipulation and wanted the truth out after all? Who else would have access to private calls between Kody and executives? Who else would benefit from building a frenzy right before a new season aired? The most chilling theory of all was this. What if the leaks weren't a betrayal but rather a plan? What if TLC itself engineered the slow release of audio, leveraging scandal as publicity gas to drive Sister Wives Season 20 into record high waters? Fans didn't know if anything was worse. Whether the leaks were a rebellious act against Kody, or whether they were simply another staged twist in a show that was no longer recording reality, but writing it. Either way, there was one thing for sure with the fourth leak. Kody's empire was on shaky ground. His reputation, his credibility, even his TLC contract. Everything he had achieved was on the brink of collapse. But the worst was yet to come. For insiders had speculated that the fifth and last leak held something more explosive than secret money or manipulation. Something which would compel TLC to make a stand once and for all. And when that last audio fell, the universe of Sister Wives would never be the same again. The fifth leak didn't have to happen, at least. So people thought, with 4 recordings already having busted the tightly guarded image of Kody Brown. The clandestine bargains, the hidden funds, the manipulation, everyone figured they'd heard the worst of it. But then, in the dead of a Thursday evening, the files surfaced online, briefer than its precursors, raspier in quality, but infinitely more lethal in content. The audio began with a pause. A long silence, broken only by the faint sound of someone clearing their throat. Then Kody's voice, tense, sharp, and panicked. "This can't get out. If this gets out, I'm finished." The second voice on the call was more distinct this time around. It was a man, assumed to be a TLC executive, and his demeanor was colder than that of the sympathetic advisors heard in previous leaks. "Kody," the man stated, "we've protected you for years, but if Christine or Janelle gets wind of it, it won't just be you, it'll be us." That is when Kody threw the bombshell. "Then we bury it. We bury the contract. No one has to know I signed away the rights. If they catch a glimpse of the clause, I am finished. TLC is finished. I don't care what it takes, make it gone." Those fans who heard that statement couldn't catch their breath. Signed away the rights. What rights? To what? Within minutes, the forums and TikTok accounts imploded with speculations. Some interpreted Kody as referring to property, the long contentious Coyote Pass land that had created wedges among the wives for years. Others said he was referring to financial rights to the show itself, royalties, or even the right to direct how his wives were represented on television. But the scariest reading was this: that Kody had signed a clandestine agreement, granting him control over the wives' income, looks, or destinies, binding them to a system they had not quite consented to, and the last part of the recording appeared to validate it. Kody's voice fell lower, near a whisper. "If they see it, they'll know everything was rigged. They'll know I never planned to share. Christine will use it to destroy me. Janelle will take me to court. Robyn's the only one who understands why it had to be done." That final phrase, "Robyn's the only one who understands," was the knife for years. Viewers had complained that Kody favored Robyn, that he'd created a life with her while abandoning the others. But here, now, was evidence that she wasn't merely the preferred wife. She was his partner in deception, his confidante in the very negotiations that had left the other women to suffer, to question, and ultimately to leave. Within a few hours of the leak, rigged contract trended globally. Viewers cried for answers from TLC. How much did they know? Had they enabled Kody to manipulate not only his family, but millions of viewers who felt that the show was presenting reality? Christine replied first. Her Instagram message was brief but chilling. "It has always been about control. But control doesn't last forever." Her fans filled the comments with love and anger, tagging TLC on every post calling for justice. Janelle, typically reserved and composed, left only a one-line incendiary remark. "He underestimated me." To fans who had long revered her strength, it was a battle cry. Even Meri got in on it, her cryptic tone keener than ever. When someone writes the script, don't forget they're also acting in it. The point was unmistakable. Kody had been scripting the family's lives and acting as though he lived them. And again, Robyn remained silent. Her silence, once interpreted as dignity, was now interpreted as complicity. Fans rebuked her with outrage, claiming she knew all along that she had assisted in keeping the truth from Kody. Some even wondered if her silence was on purpose, that she and Kody had a plan to weather the storm and start over alone. But this time, the storm was too enormous. TLC would no longer remain silent. 3 days later, the final leak, the network put out a carefully constructed statement. It stated, in part, "We are aware of the unauthorized recordings being circulated online. TLC takes the integrity of our programming seriously. We are carrying out an internal review and will address this issue in due course." It was vague, evasive, but fans knew exactly what it meant. TLC had been caught off guard, and they were scrambling. Legal commentators chimed in afterwards. If the leaks were actual, they explained, Kody would be liable for lawsuits, not just from his wives, but from TLC as well. Depending on the terms of the contract, he might have been in violation of labor laws, committed fraud, or practiced financial misrepresentation. Overnight, what started out as a family soap opera was being bandied about in criminal liability terms. Meanwhile, fans rallied like never before. Petitions poured onto the web calling for TLC to drop Kody immediately and transfer the show to Christine, Janelle, and even Meri. Twitter threads became amateur dossiers, and viewers dug through past episodes for clues on what was reportedly hidden in the contract. With every mention of money, property, or power by Kody, clips were dug up, repurposed in light of the leaks. And for the first time in more than a decade, Kody Brown went out of sight. No Instagram lives, no cameos, no public outings. The man who had savored the spotlight stepped back into silence, with only the reverberation of his own voice. Words he had never imagined would be heard. The burden of those leaks will follow him for the rest of his life, because they didn't just show a bad contract or a dirty deal. They showed what was really behind the tale that had been built by the fans over 20 seasons. That the love, the trust, the family cohesion never mattered. Control mattered. Image mattered. Money mattered. And after the truth had come to light, the empire collapsed. Christine and Janelle stood taller than ever, hugged by fans as survivors of a system that had attempted to break them. Meri, so long pitied, was finally regarded as someone who had weathered manipulation most couldn't even begin to understand, and Robyn, guilty or merely complicit, became a symbol of everything the viewers had come to loathe about Kody's rule. The fifth leak wasn't just the end of Kody's career. It was the end of the myth, the end of the illusion, and the beginning of a new chapter for the women who had finally broken free. Because as Kody himself once whispered on that call, "If this gets out, I'm finished." And it did.